when I was a kid in Lancashire, me and a few of my mates used to do what we used to call scree running. I don't know if scree running is a real thing or whether it's something we made up, but basically it involves, well, for us it was, we used to do it in disused quarries near where I used to live, but I think you could do it on any kind of incline that's got loose shale on it. And basically you would find an incline, a really steep incline, like at least 45 degrees, probably a bit steeper, a couple of 100 yards long maybe. And there's a fantastic one in disused quarry near where I used to live. And this particular incline was covered in scree or shale. And the idea is that you would stand at the top and then just kind of lean forward and just start running down the hill as fast as you could. And it's fantastic. I mean, you couldn't, you know, once you'd committed yourself to doing it, you were completely locked into the action. And I really loved that feeling of being committed. That was part of its enjoyment. And once you were going, there's very limited things you could do. You certainly couldn't stop. If you tried to stop yourself halfway down, you'd just fall over. If you tried to do any major direction changes, you would fall over. All your attention was really placed on making sure one foot was in front of the other and just going for it as fast as you could, really. And this particular slope had a nice gradiated run out at the end, you know what I mean? So you didn't just like crash into the ground when you hit the bottom. And it was lovely that's just that feeling of kind of throwing yourself into it and running as fast as you can. I mean, I still get a sense of a reminder of that sensation when I go on roller coasters occasionally with my kids. We usually go to Florida once a year and go to Islands of Adventure, something like that, and that the feeling of going on the Hulk roller coaster is a little bit like that. Not as good, of course. But the reason I'm thinking about that, the reason I'm reminded about that actually, is nothing to do with physical activity, although I think it is. It just doesn't feel like it is. It's to do with thinking, actually, and prediction. Thinking and prediction. Because I've been thinking about this thing, I think I may have talked about it before, this thing called the cognitive imperative. This is something that Andrew Newberg and Eugene Dechille write about in one of their books, but I think I've heard it called by different names elsewhere. The cognitive imperative, which is like, I guess it's the fairly unique feature that we humans have to not simply react to current situations, but to predict the future and kind of live in that future constantly, or live in a series of slightly subjunctive futures. And kind of feel how those futures are going to be and work our way into those futures gradually. We're constantly imagining the future. I think the example that I read, I don't think it was Dechille and Newberg who gave this example, but one of the examples is that you hear a noise at night and you don't just kind of immediately react to the noise, you immediately start constructing subjunctive futures about and scenarios really around that noise. You know, is it a burglar? Is it a cat? You try to analyse the situation and often quite close detail. You know, if you're imagining it's a burglar, you might even get a sense of what that burglar looks like, or how tall they are, or maybe what they're wearing. It can get quite elaborate, I think. And sometimes when those things happen, not noises in the night that represent burglars, but sometimes I can kind of almost feel the various subjunctive futures opening up and then closing down as one of them turns into reality. And a really simple example of that, and this is probably a different function actually, but never mind. You know, sometimes when I open the fridge to get a can of Coke out, I'll open the can, open the fridge, reach towards the Coke, and if there's some other kind of drink in there, sometimes they've got, you know, the kids have got Tango or 7-Up or something in there as well, and sometimes I can kind of feel my hand start to drift towards another can, a different can, without really thinking about it. I can just kind of feel the possibility, the possible future that other can represents, the series of subjunctive realities in which I'm drinking one drink or another, just kind of open up for a moment in my felt sense, and then I'll make a choice and collapse all those state vectors into the can of Coke and take that out, close the fridge door, and get on with my life. So that, again, I'm not sure if that's part of it or not, but certainly that feels connected to me. And I think this is probably unique to humans. It might not be, but I think it is. I mean, I know there's some evidence that all creatures that have got sensory motor systems have this, have the capacity to start thinking in terms of these subjunctive futures, to predict. This is something that Rodolfo Llinas talks about in whatever that book's called, I can't remember now. I'll put it in the sidebar. But he talks about that, about how our ability to, not our ability necessarily, but how any kind of sufficiently evolved organism that's got a central nervous system has the ability to start predicting and making choices that based on those predictions. So I'm guessing that the cognitive imperative that we have, this urge to kind of restlessly cast ourselves forward into the future, and perhaps even recklessly cast ourselves forward into the future, is perhaps an extension of that, or a mobilization of that onto a different abstract plane. Maybe. I suppose that's the little story I gave at the beginning of this about scree running, as we called it, running down ridiculous inclines of shale in a dangerous fashion, is the kind of mental image I have for that, is the kind of physiological correlate I have for that, and a way to think about it, that I feel myself constantly kind of slightly leaning forward head first into the future. So my head is just leaning into the future a little bit and kind of looking around, and the slightest movement would lead me to fall in a slightly different direction, and I can kind of feel that, just as I could with running down the scree. Not sure if that really talks about cognitive imperatives at all, actually. Yeah, okay. Cognitive imperative, scree running. End of.